Okay. I've seen people crochet the craziest things. Brian Brian's kids can. Brian Tagto's kids do that. You saw the octopus up there. That- One of the kids made that. Isaac. Do you really? But you can't make circles. Huh.
I'll make you one. You know, when I first started, I was well young. Okay, and then I started crocheting. If you notice, I made all these
Yeah.
Abigail.
I've always threatened Camille with the no-tell motels on trips. Car chenille Camille. And so those things all have those kind of bedspreads on them that are all gross.
She's got one. She's got one.
Yeah.
Abigail. I'm showing her the different items I can make. But I've got to learn how to make the circle.
Oh, there you go.
I love to crochet. No, I just told you. No, neither have I. I have to try it.
There you go. That's it. Church needs a crochet club.
You gotta have a bigger needle.
Put that on the calendar. Did you? Keep it in mind,
Mine,
huh?
I started with rug down. And then started off.
They won't let you whittle in the hospital. Right? It's a shame. There'd be some.
That's a hot, to me, that's a hot.
It is. It gets time, keeps your mind sharp. Counting all that stuff.
My fingers,
There you go. Yeah, that's true too.
you know, when my hands fat, I'm moving them to better.
It's probably good for your eyes too.
Yeah. I think you occupied.
That's there you go. I'd rather see you occupied. Well, good morning. We're going to pick up on Isaiah. We're going to keep going and pick up where Chuck left off last week. So today's lesson is going to start out with Judah is warned, and it's in Isaiah 28. That's where we're going to pick up Isaiah 28:14. I think I basically used your slides for the rest of this chapter. I learned what. Usually I'll go through and I'll add or subtract or something or change it just so I understand it better. But I think I added one question, but I think basically I used those for this first half, anyways. So thank you. So I put a little study time in this, and put a little bit more study time in the second half of it. So we'll see where it goes. So Isaiah 28:14 through 15. Therefore, hear the word of the Lord, you scoffers, who rule this people who are in Jerusalem. Because you have said, we have made a covenant with death, and with Sheol we have a pact. The gushing flood will not reach us when it passes by, because we have made falsehood our refuge, and we have concealed ourselves with deception. So let's start out with this. Who had the people of Judah made a covenant with? They did not. Not the Lord. Who did they make a covenant with? Verse 15. With death. They made a covenant with death. And they made a pact with who? Sheol. Yeah, they should have, Nora. You're sitting here saying the most intelligent thing they could have done was have they said God's taken care of them all these years, and they don't remember that. So they make a pact with death, make a covenant with death and a pact with Sheol. Who or what is Sheol? It's a place of the dead, right? That's where the dead go. It's kind of a holding place, and it's the good. When you die, you can't change your fate. Sheol is where souls go, and then at the day of judgment, they go two directions. So there's good and bad. There's no torment. It's just a waiting place. And I've heard a million different ways of saying that, and that's about why I understand it. So that's about it. But go ahead, Chuck. Yeah. They've separated themselves from God, is what they have. That's the death, that's the Sheol. Yeah, and they've separated themselves from God at this point. And this isn't a quote from the people. This is because you see things like this because we made falsehood our refuge and have concealed ourselves with deception. The people I know who justify themselves of being the farthest away from God possible will never say they're wrong. And that's really, if you say you're wrong, you're on your way back. And this is, no, we've found refuge in falsehood. We've concealed ourselves with deception. So yeah, I'm with you. They've separated themselves with God is really what he's pointing at. Yeah, and they made a deal with the Assyrian king. Between the Assyrian king and their own armies, we'll take care of ourselves, and the Assyrian king will take care of us. There's no room for God in that. And that's where they're at. Who's the gushing flood that people of Judah thought would not reach them, and why did they think that? Wasn't really a flood. Yeah. What is that gushing flood? The Syrian army. It's the Syrian army. It's not water. Yeah. They'll stop there, and they're not coming this way. We'll be okay. We'll be fine. That was, so like you said, they got to deal with the Assyrian army, and they got to deal with the Assyrian king. They didn't expect that to happen. I don't know why. I don't know why a line in the sand would be, if they're eating everything else up, why a line in the sand would protect you. It really is, unless you've got really good neighbors. I mean, for years, our relationship, United States relationship with Canada, it's a line. It's really all it is, a few checkpoints. If you want to go into Canada, you walk into Canada, and it's that way, and it's been that way. But yeah, bad neighbors, you build fences, barbed wire, all that stuff. But that might help, but obviously things are taller than that. So, verse 16, Isaiah 28, 16 through 18. Therefore, this is what the Lord God says: Behold, I am laying a stone in Zion, a tested stone, a precious cornerstone for the foundation, firmly placed. The one who believes in it will not be disturbed. I will make justice the measuring line, and righteousness the level. Then hail will sweep away the refuge of lies, and the waters will overflow the secret place. Your covenant with death will be canceled, and your pact with Sheol will not stand. When the gushing flood passes through, then you will become its trampling ground. So this is what God says about the pact. So who is the stone being laid in Zion? No secret in this symbolism, is there? Yeah, it's Christ. Yeah, it's Jesus Christ. That's what's coming, and that's where it's firm foundation. The righteousness as a level. That's where you see that kind of stuff. So it's Christ at that point. That's coming. It's coming. That'll change things. What will the stone do? It cancels your death. You're right. Cancels that covenant, the death, or you're separated from Christ. Cancels that. Sinners. Sin separates you from God. Your penalty is death. The covenant crosses that out. No more pact with Sheol. There's no pact with death. We talked about the flood already. Actually, this is a different flood, isn't it? Yeah. Yeah. You can't be the Syrian army. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, they did. Yeah, they made a covenant with Rome, and AD 70, they become the trampling ground. The flood at that point becomes the Romans and finishes off Jerusalem. Finishes off the lease. Really, is really what it is. It finishes that off. It changes. The kingdom becomes the kingdom of Christ, and not the kingdom of ground, not the kingdom of bloodline. It's the kingdom of Christ. No, there's no temple needed because there's no need for sacrifice. Where does you carry God with you? You know, yeah. The sacrifice that happens, His sacrifice is a perfect sacrifice. Our Romans 12, our own transformed mind is in its service, a worship, a sacrifice to God. So it's constant is what happens, and we don't need to go. I'll probably never be in Jerusalem, so you know, it's actually probably even harder to get to today than it ever was. Matthew 21, we're going to look at that part of it. Matthew 21, verse 42, 44. Jesus said to them, "Did you never read in the Scriptures, a stone which the builders rejected, this has become the chief cornerstone? This came about from the Lord, and it is marvelous in our eyes. But therefore I say to you, the kingdom of God will be taken away from you and given to a people producing its fruit. And the one who falls on this stone will be broken to pieces, and on whomever it falls, it will crush him. I will make justice the measuring line and the righteousness level." That's 17 is from what we saw in Isaiah. It's all part of it. So who provided the refuge of lies that Isaiah referred to in verse 17? "And hail shall sweep away the refuge of lies." We talk about it in the Matthew part too. The stone that will crush. It's definitely leadership. It's definitely the Pharisees, the Sanhedrin, the Pharisees, the Sadducees, the Sanhedrin. I saw a comic this week that it looked like an HR guy explaining to a new employee, and it said, "And beware of the unwritten rules." And this is it, getting rid of the unwritten rules, or the man-made rules that became on the level of God that kept nobody being good enough. Those rules are what even persecuted Christ to put him on the cross. Oh yeah. It is a tendency that our own traditions could be on the level of God's laws. And I think it's Matthew 11, verses 1 through 3, that talks about the Pharisees, that your own traditions of man keep people from honoring the laws of God. Which, love God with all your heart, mind, soul, and strength, and love your neighbor as yourself. And some of that, like I said, the traditions of man prohibit some of that. Yeah, that's. Yeah, they wrote over God's law by saying that you could take care of your parents and not have to take care of church. But it's the same thing. There's a whole lot of other stuff that gets in the way. The traditions of man can get in the way of the two laws that we really have. So, 2 rules, 2 commands. Isaiah 28, 19 through 20. "As often as it passes through, it will seize you. For morning after morning, it will pass through. Anytime during the day or night, it will be sheer terror to understand what it means. The bed is too short on which to stretch it, and the blanket is too small to wrap oneself in." So what's passing through in verse 19? Morning after morning, it'll pass through. Anytime during the day or night. Back to what we're talking about, it's the Assyrian army. It's really what it is. The Assyrian army. Verse 19 also says, "And it will be sheer terror to understand the message." What message will they hear day after day as the Assyrian army comes through? That'll be, that's a good point. That's part of the message. You're going to hear that this town fell to the Assyrian army, and where is your God to take care of you? This is all God's territory. And each city, you would hear this on the CNN, you would hear this you'd see it on Facebook, you'd see it on Snapchat, Today, this is how it would be. It would be, the message would spread, and it would be that sheer terror of they're getting closer, that sheer terror of hearing every town that falls, where's your God? If you heard that, New York City fell, or LA fell, somebody took it over, Yeah, you might do that too. You're like, it's L.A., It's L.A. But then it gets a little closer. Now it's Oklahoma City. Now it's Dallas. Now it's, Birmingham, Atlanta, Daytona Beach. It starts getting closer. An army's going through, it starts getting scarier. And with each town or city that falls, where's your God? And actually, when you do, you look at some of this stuff, the problems that exist, that still says, where's your God? As Satan takes over a lot of stuff, and it's not just a city, it's people's hearts. But as you see that, it still is, where's your God? And that's where you'll hear people ask that, how can a good God allow bad stuff to happen? But that's the message they'll hear day after day. What does the truth reveal? And how does that tie to this amazing quote, the bed is too short and the blanket's too small? Yeah, you underestimate it. You bought a blanket at the flea market, you bought a blanket on eBay, and it didn't cover the bed. You underestimated the size of your bed. You underestimate the power of God. You underestimate what He'll do. Well, in this case, God uses a foreign army to try to bring His people back to Him. You've totally underestimated all this kind of thing. And we always come up too short. That's a good point. If you're protecting yourself from the Assyrian army, you're protecting yourself without using God. You bought a blanket too small. You're not comfortable because the bed's too small. Maybe not everybody's ever slept in a bed too small. I remember outgrowing my bed at home. Adam, you're taller. That probably happened earlier. But I remember outgrowing that bed. It's like, I'm too big for this anymore. Yeah, they're hanging out over the edge. Yeah, the twin bed didn't cut it. In the first couple of weeks, Camille and I were married. We slept on a king, a queen, a full, and a twin bed. It's like, I don't recommend any. I don't recommend all of those, but I remember those being too small. Clive? Yeah, the security you can't provide for yourself, right? It's just not enough. Not enough. You won't be comfortable. You won't be secure. And it's always that way with God. If you don't have God, you're not secure enough. Isaiah 28, 21 through 22, for the Lord will rise up at Mount Perazim, and it will be stirred up as in the valley of Gibeon, to do his task, his unusual task, and to work his work, his extraordinary work. Now do not carry on as scoffers, or your shackles will be made stronger, for I've heard from the Lord God of armies of decisive destruction on all the earth. Anybody know what happened at Mount Perazim, where the Lord rose up? Yeah. David beat some Philistines. So David inquired a lot. That's the 2 Samuel 5, 19 through 20. So David inquired of the Lord, saying, shall I go up against the Philistines? Will you hand them over to me? And the Lord said to David, go up, I will certainly hand the Philistines over to you. Then David came to Baal Perazim and defeated them there. And he said, the Lord has broken through my enemies before me, like the breakthrough of waters. Therefore he named the place Baal Perazim. So God led the way. God gave the victory at Mount Perazim. Same thing, Valley of Gibeon. Well, it's true. God's big enough to control the government. He controls the armies, controls the governments, he controls all that stuff. Yeah. I can see that, and they would be expecting protection, but they didn't come to him asking for that deliverance. And that's what you see with judges. I mean, they were subject to the neighbors coming in on them. You know, sometimes the neighbors came in and smashed them. Sometimes when they called out to God, they beat out the neighbors. So who did the people scoff at in verse 22? Now you do not carry on as scoffers. They scoff at God. Yeah. Yeah. Mm-hmm. No, they take all Judah except Jerusalem. But yeah, you can hear them. Okay. And it's not that they've asked God to protect them. They believe, between their covenant with Assyria, their own armies, their own strengths, and God has always delivered people. They just didn't appeal to him for that. Isaiah 28, 23 through 25. Listen to hear my voice. Pay attention to hear my words. Does the farmer plow continually to plant seed? Does he continually turn and break up his ground? Does he not level his surface and sow dill and scatter cumin and plant wheat in rows, barley in its place and rye within its area? What's the comparison of the farmer planting a seed and breaking up the ground versus leveling the ground and sowing the seed? It's like this. Sometimes he harvests to plant a new crop. Is really what I see in it. Yeah, I'll get. No, it'll just grow. Yeah. I'll give you that. I was looking short term, but it's long term. Yeah. It's preparing the ground for Christ to come. And he will come. And like I say, I plant the seed and it'll grow. It'll grow until it's all Christ. Picking up 26, for his God instructs and teaches him properly, for dill is not threshed with a threshing sledge, nor is the cartwheel driven over cumin, but dill is beaten out with a rod and cumin with a club. Grain for bread is crushed. Indeed, he does not continue to thresh it forever, because the wheel of his cart and his horses eventually damage it. He does not thresh it longer, and it also comes from the Lord of armies, who has made it his counsel wonderful and his wisdom great. What is God promising with his analogy as when to thresh and when to stop threshing? Unless somebody's got some real good farm experience on growing herbs and stuff. I'd love to hear some of that. But he's like that. He says sometimes you thresh and then you don't want to thresh too much. You don't want to grind it too much. What happens with seeds and stuff when it damages them, right? They become smaller and become dust. What kind of pepper do you use? The coarse ground pepper, or do you use finer than that? Anybody use the extra fine pepper that looks like dust? My grandpa used to use that stuff. Yeah, that's some potent stuff. That's some potent stuff right there. It changes, and I think that's really kind of what he's saying here. He's threshing right now. He's preparing, his people for Christ, but he doesn't want to crush them. He doesn't want to. He's going to take out what he has to take out, but he has to have the remnant. He has to have the society to bring about the birth of Christ. So he'll thresh for a while. The Assyrian armies now, then you got Babylonian captivity coming. That's what's coming. Chuck's famous map, and I don't know what you're trying to show with the map, or if you just left it in there. Yeah. Okay. Sennacherib takes Judah, but he leaves Jerusalem. He tries to take it, and that's where we're going to go with the next chapter. So, yeah, the little dot, basically, in the middle of all that space. So that's the Assyrian captivity, how that worked. So Jerusalem is warned as we moved into Isaiah 29. I got notes for the first 3 sections, but Jerusalem is warned of the siege by Sennacherib, divine promise of relief, verses 5 through 8, and a prophecy of the hardening or blinding of Israel. And I'll leave 13 and on to Chuck for next week. Israel's warnings repeated and promises renewed. So Isaiah 29, verses 1 through 2. Ah, Ariel, Ariel, the city where David encamped. Add year to year, let the feast run their round, yet I will distress Ariel, and there will be moaning and lamentation, and she shall be to me like an Ariel. All right, so what's Ariel? Who is Ariel? What is Ariel? Not a mermaid. It's Jerusalem. But you got to ask the question, right? All of a sudden, it's Ariel. And it's like, I've never seen Jerusalem referred to as Ariel. I've seen Salem, Jerusalem, Jerusalem, but Ariel, they got a lot of names. God's got a lot of names. Christ's got a lot of names. But Ariel. Where David encamped. That's the city of David. Yeah, you're right. You know that's where he can camp. Is where the temple is. Even it doesn't take a whole lot to see that. Ariel is kind of 2 words, Ari and El. El typically is God. It's usually, there's a lot of stuff that starts with El that's God. It's the lion of God. The lion was the symbol of Judah. So you can look at it as Judah, Jerusalem. You can look at it that direction. It is Jerusalem, not just Judah. It's also going to mean the altar hearth. That should be altar, A-L-T-A-R, but it's, spell correct is fix that for me. So, just in case you had an extra fireplace somewhere, it's not that. So this is the altar hearth of God. Where was the altar hearth of God? The holy place, Jerusalem. That's where the temple was. That's where the hearth was. That's where they made the sacrifices. That's God's fire. That's what it is. Like I said, it's A-L-T-A-R. There's an altar there. There's a fire. What's that? It altered what I wrote. Yes, it altered it to altar because there's no way in the world anybody wouldn't want it as ALTAR/hearth. So that happens when you make up your own words sometimes too. They didn't like that. What will happen to Jerusalem? And when will it happen? You know, I think this actually goes with it's the siege that's coming. It is really what it is, Sennacherib's siege. Like you say, it also applies to, it would apply to Babylon. It would also apply to AD 70 in some aspects. But the following verses is I'm going to say it's a siege by Sennacherib is what it is. There's going to be moaning, lamentation. When's it going to happen? Add year to year, let the feasts run their round. What's that prophecy say to you? How long? Next week? Season, couple seasons, a year. It's over a year before it happens, but it's not long, is really what it is. Some commentaries will say it's within a year, but it takes a little bit longer than that. But in verse 3, I will encamp against you all around, and will besiege you with towers, and I will raise siege works against you. See, it's siege. it's written there. And you will be brought low from the earth. You shall speak, and from the dust your speech will be bowed down. Your voice shall come from the ground like the voice of a ghost, and from the dust your speech shall whisper. The bad thing about PowerPoint is you can't put everything up there at one time. You could, but you couldn't read it, and it just becomes confusing. Problem is, comes what's next. The moaning, the lamentation that we saw back here, in verse 2, and the ruin, it's going to come as a siege. You know what a siege is? They're going to starve you out. Surround your city with an army. Keep everything on the inside stays in, everything on the outside stays out. You got supply lines coming in, not no more. You need to go harvest crops, ain't gonna happen. Where do you get your water? Where do you get your fuel? Where do you get whatever you got inside that's yours to use until we starve you out and you surrender. That's pretty, that was a way they did things. You see that with Daniel, there's a siege. And they did pretty good well because they had a river go through the city, right? Am I remembering that right? Until they blocked off the river. Yeah. Blocked off the river, they just made it worse. The cops do this to people too. You lock yourself inside, well, just stay out here. You got to come out sometime. So, who orchestrates the siege? I underlined that, even though you probably won't be able to see that big underline. But who put this siege together? It's God. This is His extraordinary way to deal with His people this time because they've fallen so far away. What's the goal? And it's in verse 4. What's the goal of the siege?
Humble. Humility.
He's going to humble His people. That's what He's going to do. He's going to humble them. He's going to bring brought low. From the earth you shall speak. From the dust your speech will be bowed down. Your voice shall come from the ground like the voice of a ghost, and from the dust your speech shall whisper. Instead of the proud with their heads up or just saying, beating their chests, they'll be bowed down, symbolically at least, to the ground, talking to the dust. That's how far God has to make His people go to remember they're God's people. Siege comes at the hands of the Assyrian army led by Sennacherib. I'm going to flip you over to 2 Kings 18. 2 Kings 18, 13 through 16. In the 14th year of King Hezekiah, Sennacherib, king of Assyria, came up against all the fortified cities of Judah and took them. And Hezekiah, king of Judah, sent to the king of Assyria, Lachish, saying, I have done wrong, withdraw from me. Whatever you impose on me, I will bear. And the king of Assyria required of Hezekiah, king of Judah, 300 talents of silver and 30 talents of gold. And Hezekiah gave him all the silver that was in the house of the Lord and in the treasuries of the king's house. At that time, Hezekiah stripped the gold from the doors of the temple of the Lord and from the doorposts that Hezekiah, king of Judah, had overlaid and gave it to king of Assyria. So as Assyria's army gets closer, the king of Judah, Hezekiah, pays a ransom. Since all the silver they have, apparently all the gold, they start stripping it off the doors. I saw Trump put gold on his doors at the White House. That has no political thing to that. Maybe it's just so we can get out of a situation. I saw that this week. Verse 17, and the king of Assyria sent the Tartan, the Rabsaris, and the Rabshakeh with the great army from Lachish to King Hezekiah at Jerusalem. And they went up and came to Jerusalem. When they arrived, they came and stood by the conduit of the upper pool, which is on the highway to the washer's field. Then they called for the king. There came out to him Eliakim, son of Hilkiah, who was over the household, and Shebna, the secretary, and Joah, the son of Asher, the recorder. So basically, the Assyrian army, although they had that ransom, they walked right up to Jerusalem. They stood on the conduit of the upper pool. They blocked the water. The start of the siege is right there. Divine promised relief in verse 5 through 8. But the multitude of your foreign foes shall be like small dust, and the multitude of the ruthless like passing chaff. In an instant, suddenly, you will be visited by the Lord of hosts with thunder and with earthquake and great noise, with whirlwind and tempest, and a flame of devouring fire. So how large was the army that the Assyrians brought to Jerusalem? And they like that, and they just basically walk up. How big is the army? Verse 5. Multitude of foreign foes shall be like small dust. Talk about that extra fine pepper. Try to count those flakes. That's how many people the Syrian army brought to Jerusalem. A lot. Right? Not a couple hundred, not a couple thousand. Like small dust. This is from the website. If piece of artwork from the Center of Online Judaic Studies. Their webcam was down that day, so I'm sure this is in the picture. Anyways, that's probably, when you talk about an army like specks of dust, that's that army. Those guys are shoulder to shoulder, they're there. The siege has begun. You gonna walk out? You gonna go anywhere? You gonna bring anything in? Not today. That's so probably a decent depiction of how that would be. At the end of verse 5, it says, in an instant, suddenly, what happens? The tide turns. The tide don't turn, it just changes. You'll be visited by the Lord of hosts with thunder, with earthquake, great noise, with whirlwind and tempest, and the flame of a devouring fire. Isaiah 37:36 says, and the angel of the Lord went out and struck down 185,000 in the camp of the Assyrians. And when people arose early in the morning, behold, these were all dead bodies. So this happens instantly, suddenly. You take the picture, you wake up in the morning and they're all dead, just laying right there. Crazy, isn't it? I mean, the people inside thought, the thoughts there are, this is not looking good. The thoughts on the outside is, we're going to take over. He was.
He was the one who prayed. He was the one who took a lot of all the idol worship. He tried to eliminate all of it. And
This guy tried to get rid of all idol worship. And it pays off. And that's what you see here. God shows up, squashes the Assyrian army. In Isaiah 29:7-8, and the multitude of all the nations that fight against Ariel, all that fight against her, and her stronghold and distress her, shall be a dream, a vision of the night. As when a hungry man dreams, and behold, he is eating, and awake with his hunger not satisfied. Or as when a thirsty man dreams, and behold, he is drinking, and awakes faint with his thirst not quenched. So all the multitudes of the nations shall be that fight against Mount Zion. Sennacherib would have been like this. His dream was squashed, his thirst was squashed. He thought he was going to get Jerusalem, but he wakes up hungry. He wakes up thirsty. Isaiah 37 verses 37-38. Then Sennacherib, king of Assyria, departed and returned home and lived at Nineveh. And as he was worshiping in the house of Nisroch, his god, Adremelech and Sharezer, the sons, struck him with the sword, and after they escaped into the land of Ararat, Ereshadon, his son, reigned in his place. Sennacherib sees his whole army dead. He's still hungry. He just goes home. That's all he does. He goes home, and he doesn't end well with him. Let's see if I can squeeze this in. If not, Isaiah 29:9-12. Astonish yourselves and be astonished. Blind yourselves and be blind. Be drunk, but not with wine. Stagger, but not with strong drink. For the Lord has poured out upon you a spirit of deep sleep, and has closed your eyes and covered your heads. And the vision of all this has become to you like the words of a book that is sealed. When men give it to one who can read, saying, read this, he says, I cannot, for it's sealed. Then they give the book to one who cannot read, and he says, read this, and he says, I can't read. Israel's blind. They're blind to God's ways. They're blind to God's words. They're blind to what God does for them. They're blind to the prophets. They're blind to the seers. They're blind to his word. What causes this blindness? Is it men themselves? Is it Satan or God? Nora says, A, men themselves cause this blindness. Anybody else? It's probably a little bit of all three. And believe it or not, it's all three. Romans 1:21-25. For although they know God, they did not honor him as God or give thanks to him. And this is where you're saying it's just the same kind of thing. They do it themselves. They gave them up in the lust in their heart, to impurity, to dishonoring in their bodies amongst themselves. I'd read it all, but anyways, Romans 21-25. 2 Corinthians 4:3-4. Even if your gospel is veiled, it's veiled to those who are perishing. In their case, the God of this world, which would be Satan, has blinded the minds of the unbelievers. So it's partly Satan, and it's also partly God. 2 Corinthians 4:3-4. Not 3-4, but 12-18. since we have such a hope, we're very bold. Anyways, it goes on that basically there's a veil that only through Christ can you see the whole thing. So there's a little bit of all that going on. We can be blind if we want to be blind, and that's it. Don't be blind. See God, see His ways, see His word, live it in your lives, carry it in your heart. So that's it for me. So thank you.